Well, good morning, friends. Welcome here. If you're a guest or if you're new with us, special welcome to you. My name is Paul, and I have the honor of serving as lead pastor here at Lakeview. Welcome here. So glad you can join us. Now, today we are in the final week of Advent, the last thin stretch of waiting before we celebrate that God has arrived into this world as one of us. We're almost there, but not quite yet. And the weariness of life and of the season, the blizzards and the cold and all the emotional things that we hold, they still linger in some of our waiting. Now, of course, in this season, we feel the joy that surrounds us. We anticipate seeing family and friends. We buy gifts with excitement to see our loved ones open them and to see the joy they will have on their faces. Of course, that's all part of the season as well. And yet, at the same time, we feel all the not yets, don't we? We notice who's missing. We carry the aches that remain, the things that have not come true, perhaps the prayers that haven't been answered, the loss is still unresolved. They also hang quietly in the air of Advent. And friends, this is the genius of the Advent season. Advent does not ask us to ignore the weariness that we experience in life. Instead, before we get to the Christmas, before we get to the celebrations, it invites us to wait within all those things that are not quite finished yet, to anticipate God's arrival right in the midst of all that is not quite right. So in these final days of waiting, when the world still feels fragile and unfinished, our hearts turn toward one deep longing above all the others, the longing for love. Now today we lit the candle of love. We heard Lori share a beautiful liturgy at the beginning of our service, reflecting and anticipating the gift of love that's coming, and she did such a great job, and it's so beautiful. But can I be honest that sometimes when we hear these beautiful words about love and we light the candles to represent it and they shine brightly in the darkness and the darkness is dispelled, all this talk about love and these kind of actions are beautiful, but they can kind of feel abstract and kind of removed from us. Because when we typically talk about love in our everyday language, or even in the way we maybe live out love in our everyday life, we usually actually mean few other things by it, don't we? Like for example, first, we often treat love as a feeling. I love this song. I love this coffee. I don't love how that makes me feel. And then love becomes this shorthand for attraction or enjoyment, maybe an emotional response that rises and falls within us and becomes a feeling. Or maybe we talk about love or maybe live it out in this other way, when we confuse love as a preference or approval. We say things like, love becomes like a like or a share or maybe even supportive comment. Like it's easy to give, but it's also easy to withdraw. And it rarely costs us anything. Third, we often understand love as a transaction. I love you if. I'll stay as long as you. If you do this for me, I'll do that for you. And in this understanding of love becomes something we just exchange based on performance, compatibility, or mutual benefit. So we talk about love often in these ways that don't actually resonate with the love that we talked about when we started our service. Think of this example. Think of your favorite cafe or restaurant. We all have a place we really like to go, and we say things like, oh, I love this place. Oh, I love the food here. I love the atmosphere. I love how it makes me feel. I love the vibe that's happening here. And we become these great evangelists of this place. We tell everyone we know about it, how awesome it is, how great the food is. We post Facebook posts about it. We tag the place in our Instagram. We Snapchat our buddies about it. But if something changes, like if the price goes up, or the menu changes, or the experience isn't what it used to be, we just quietly stop going. No drama, no explanation. You just kind of move on. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a cafe, and you're like, well, it changed. Or at its worst, maybe it changed, and we now start publicly shaming the place. Now we put Facebook reviews, and we're like, this is terrible, and we go and Yelp. Is Yelp still a thing? No? Okay. Somebody said a strong no. That was Kurt, I think. He had his glasses on. He's checking. All right. Many of us carry different definitions of what love is like. And we use it with cafes and we use it with places, but we also bring it into our relationships. We love as long as it feels good. We stay as long as it works for us. But when love costs us something, we discover the truth. Love built only on feelings or preference or convenience isn't strong enough to carry real life. Now, to be clear, none of these ways of talking about love is entirely wrong. Feelings do matter. Affection matters. Being seen and encouraged matters. But when love is reduced to only feelings, to only approval, or only a transaction, we discover something pretty quickly, that it's just not enough. Because these versions of love don't last. They rise and fall with their moods. They rise and fall with their feelings. They depend on being understood. They only last as long as nothing costs too much. Yet the irony in all of this is, when that happens, when our feelings or approval changes, we keep searching for more love. Like there's something in us that's like, well, okay, it's not working out here, I'll look for it again somewhere else. Yet the irony is that we use the same definitions of feeling, approval, or transaction, the same things that could never sustain us, we use them to find this love. And so today I want to suggest that underneath that search, underneath all those misunderstandings of love, is something much deeper. There's a deep ache in our souls for love that allows us to be fully known, that allows us to be truly safe, that tells us that we belong, that we have a home, even when, or maybe especially when, we are misunderstood, when we're inconvenient, or when we're just unwell. There's a deep need inside of us that's looking for that kind of love. A love that meets us in our weariness and names our longings and tells us that we are known, that we are wanted, and that we belong. So Advent season is brilliant for this. It does not rush past our pain or silences our questions. It gives actually space for all those aches, for all those waitings, for all those longings, for all that hope to speak. And from that place, a simple and honest prayer rises in many of us. God, when will you set things right? God, when will you set things right? Now, that question often shows up in much quieter ways in our lives. Like, there could be things that happen in our lives, such great injustice that we may yell that out. We may yell out, God, when will you set things right? But often for many of us, this question actually shows up in really small, quiet ways. Like, most of us know what it's like to be hurt by someone, right? To be hurt by a friend, a family member, a leader, a coworker, a pastor. We've all been there. There was a moment when something was said and done that just crossed the line, that just went too far. And you waited, maybe not with revenge in mind, but you waited for just acknowledgement, for someone to say, I see it, I'm sorry, I was wrong. But the apology never came. Life moved on, they moved on, and you are left carrying something that still hasn't been named, still hasn't been repaired. That waiting for wrongs to be made right, for truth to be spoken, for a relationship to be restored, that's the space Advent gives us language for. We are not pretending that harm didn't happen. We are asking the honest question, God, when will you set things right? And the moment when we ask that question, we step into a deep and often misunderstood language of justice. Because what we mean by set things right matters, right? What we imagine God will do with injustice shapes how we understand love itself. It shapes how we understand what being Christian looks like. That's why the word justice matters so much when we talk about love. And it's also why biblical justice may surprise us. Now, many of us, when we hear the word justice, well, first of all, as we sometimes have wrong language for love, when we focus on emotion or we want things like feelings out of it or transactions, we do the same thing with justice. We often instinctively misunderstand it. For example, when I think of justice, I can't help but often go into wrongdoing being exposed. Well, justice is about wrongdoing being exposed. Consequences delivered. Accounts are being settled. We say things like, well, they deserve that. What did they think will happen? Or maybe we make it personal. I should have known better. And so when we think of justice, we typically lean into retribution when we talk about it. But the Bible tells a better story about justice. Now, the Hebrew word for justice is tzedakah, and it's often translated as righteousness or charity, which should already make us pause. Justice in the Bible is charity. You see, at its heart, the biblical understanding of justice is not about retribution, it's about restoration. Justice in the scriptures is concerned with repairing what's been damaged, lifting what's been crushed, and making space for life to flourish again. Meaning, justice isn't cold, it's not detached, it's not efficient. Justice is relational, it's patient, it's merciful. Justice is charitable. And all this kind of language, when I talk about this other part of it, when I say, well, it's cold, it's not efficient, it's all this, but when I talk about being relational, being patient, being merciful, being charitable, like that kind of language makes me think about Jesus. It's like, oh yeah, right, okay, well maybe justice looked a certain way, but then Jesus arrives and he's like, oh no, actually it's this way. But that's not the case. Because centuries before Jesus, the prophet Micah asked a simple but searching question, what does God actually want from us? And then he went on to respond, and he says, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good. O mortal here is just us, people, humans. He has shown us what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. What does the Lord require of you? Now, this is one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible. Notice how beautifully integrated it is. Justice is something we do, mercy is something we love, and both flow out of life walked with God. In other words, justice is not separate from love. Justice is love expressed in action. Love is not vague or sentimental or a feeling or abstract. Love is mercy taking shape in the real world, showing up in how we treat actual people in our ordinary moments. Can I say this again? Sometimes the Bible and its stories and teachings can feel so grand and big and like out there abstract, and it's like it feels like it's for the saints and for Jesus. But Micah here brings it down to earth, doesn't he? He reminds us that love is mercy taking shape in the real world, showing up in how we treat actual people in ordinary moments. And that's exactly where Jesus takes us when he shows up. Because when Jesus is asked what life aligned with God looks like, he doesn't start with abstract ideas either. He doesn't start with complex systems. He also, like Micah, brings it down to everyday human relationships. One of his most well-known teachings, we often call it the Golden Rule, says, do to others as you would like them to do to you. Right? We've all heard this one. What Jesus is saying here is, first of all, he's not saying this is just good advice. He's not saying like, golden rule, this is just good advice, just follow this. He's saying this is the summary of a life God desires for all of us. And when someone presses him even further, later on in the story, when he's pressed, and they're saying like, well, no, okay, that sounds nice, Jesus, that's a great idea out there, but like, what's the greatest commandment? Like, we still want to be legal about this. Like, what is the thing we exactly need to do? Jesus takes two different commandments in the Old Testament and mushes them together and says it this way, this is my paraphrase, love God with everything you are and love your neighbor as yourself. How do we live in this world? What does the Lord require of us? Well, we love God with everything we are and we love our neighbors as ourselves. Because love for God always shows up as love for people. Can I say that again? Because love for God always shows up as love for people. Now, the Greek word for love here is agape. Now, okay, and yes, I know you're getting a lot of language lessons here. We got Hebrew with tzedakah, which is just as charitable, and now Greek agape. There's not going to be a quiz after, I promise. But I think it is important for our conversation here. So agape refers to a way of treating people that was defined by Jesus himself. Agape means love, and it means to seek the well-being of others regardless of their response. It means to seek the well-being of others regardless of their response. For Jesus, love is not primarily a feeling. It's not something that happens to you. Love is a choice. Love is an action, a verb. Love is a decision to seek the well-being of someone else. Which means love is never just abstract. Love actually has a direction. Love moves outward. And the moment love moves outward, it runs straight into reality, doesn't it? Because love doesn't move toward ideas, it moves towards people. And our neighbors, the people in our lives, are not abstract. They're not concepts. Our neighbors are hungry. Our neighbors are lonely. Our neighbors are overwhelmed. Our neighbors are wounded. Our neighbors are cold. So love begins by paying attention, by noticing who is right in front of us, by refusing to look away when something is not right, and then moving to help. And the moment love does that, the moment love becomes real, it becomes something else. It becomes justice. Justice is love refusing to look away when something is not right. Justice is love refusing to look away when something is not right. Justice is love paying attention. Justice is noticing. Justice is taking actions for the good. Justice asks, what has been broken? What has been crushed? What has been lost? And then says, because I love you, I will not ignore this. This is where Jesus comes into focus. Jesus does not announce justice from a distance, does he? He embodies it. He moves towards us. He moves towards the poor. He eats with the excluded. He touches the unclean. He restores dignity before people have their lives together. He confronts systems that crush people under their weight. And when Jesus finally confronts the deepest injustice of all, the violence, the selfishness, the corruption of the world, he does not return it in kind. He absorbs it. Jesus does not defeat injustice by destroying his enemies. He defeats it by loving them all the way through death. While we were still sinners, the Bible says, Christ died for us. This is not justice instead of love. This is justice because of love. God does not set things right by keeping score. In fact, grace is just not fair. It's not. Mercy is not equal. Belonging is not earned. Justice in this kingdom is not about punishment, it's about restoration. Which is why the king does not arrive as a condemning judge, watching our every mistake. Instead, the king, Jesus, arrives humbly, as a child, as a helpless baby, into our midst, entering the cold, entering the mess, entering what is not yet right. This is love. This is the love we all ache for deep in our souls, long before we can even name it, long before we even understand it. Love that doesn't wait for improvement, love that doesn't withdraw when things get inconvenient, love that stays, love that restores. And here's where it comes full circle. When we receive this love, we can't help but we can't help but allow this love flow through us. We love God, and if we do, we notice what is broken around us. We participate, however imperfectly, in restoration. And love begins to expand. This is the life of the kingdom of God. Love becoming justice, and justice returning us to love. So Advent is not a season where we pretend everything is fine, where we put on a happy face and wait to get that gift. It is a season where longing is actually allowed to speak, and where we name what is unfinished, and where we trust that the answer to our deepest question, God, when will you set things right? The answer to that question has already begun. Love has come in Jesus. Justice has taken flesh. Restoration is underway. and it will not stop until all things are made new. So as we head into this final week of Advent, here's the final practice I would love for all of us to engage in. This week, can I invite you to pause long enough to ask the question, where is something not yet right around me? Where is something not yet right around me? And I don't mean globally. Like, that's too big. It's overwhelming. You'll like think about that for 20 minutes and you'll be like, oh, I don't know what to do with that. And I don't mean abstractly either, like, oh, what's it like out there? Is this some kind of thought experiment? Like, I want all of us, myself included, to ask the question, where is something not yet right around me? Like right where God has placed you, in your everyday relationships, in the spaces you already inhabit. Ask the question, where is something not yet right around me? It might be a person who feels lonely, a relationship that feels strained, a situation you have found is easier to avoid than to engage. And yet, this is where justice begins, by noticing. And once you notice, don't ask, how do I solve this? Ask a better question. What is the one small way I can move towards this love, towards this in love? What is one small way I can move towards this in love? To act charitably. Not to control it, not to make it better all at once, but just to move 1 inch closer. Which might look like sending a text to your friend, a message. The one you've been delaying to send. Maybe it's sitting with someone without offering advice, just being there. It may mean saying sorry without explaining yourself. Maybe it's inviting someone for coffee, at your favorite coffee shop. Or staying in the conversation you would rather avoid. Now, these may feel small, but this is how love takes shape. This is how it moves forward. In a weary world where we long for things to be set right, we embody love. Not through performance, but through presence. Not through grand gestures, but through faithful attention. So as we come to the last week of this Advent journey, let's remember how it all begins. With God choosing to come near us, not to keep score, but to create a kingdom where love seeks the good of the other, where mercy makes room, and where grace gives us a place to belong. Advent does not rush past weariness. It meets us right in the middle of it. It does not ask us to carry the weight of the world. Only it asks us to remain open to a love that has already arrived. So we wait, not with despair, but with hope, because love has come. Justice has taken flesh, and restoration is already underway. In a weary world, this is how we rejoice.